Welcome back to Healthier Daily. Every 40 seconds, someone in the United States has a stroke. We often think of it as a sudden, unpredictable catastrophe, a matter of bad luck or bad genes. But what if that's not the whole story? What if the path to a stroke is not a sudden event, but a slow, silent war being waged inside your own arteries, meal after meal? Today, we're going to talk about the unsung hero of your entire cardiovascular system, a delicate, one-cell thick, intelligent lining inside all your blood vessels called the endothelium. Its primary job is to produce a miracle molecule called nitric oxide, or NO. Nitric oxide is what tells your arteries to relax, to stay flexible, and to allow blood to flow smoothly to your brain. But there are villains on your plate, common, everyday foods that are systematically destroying this hero and shutting down your body's production of nitric oxide. A 2023 report in the Journal of the American Heart Association called this process endothelial dysfunction, the canary in the coal mine for future cardiovascular events, including ischemic stroke. It's the earliest detectable stage of vascular disease. To help us identify these dietary villains, we are once again joined by the esteemed Dr. Shigeaki Hinahara. Doctor, you have a unique and powerful way of looking at this internal battle. Where do most people go wrong?
Thank you, Dr. Carter. You speak of the science, the endothelium, and nitric oxide, and I will speak of it through the language of nature, though you will find we are telling the exact same story. I ask our listeners to stop thinking of their arteries as simple, lifeless pipes. Instead, I want you to imagine them as being lined with a living, intelligent inner skin. This inner skin is exquisitely sensitive. It is like a delicate garden lining the banks of a great river. The food we eat every day becomes the water that flows through this river. Some foods are like a clear mountain stream. They are clean, they are gentle, and they nourish the garden, keeping it lush and vibrant. But other foods, many common foods that we eat without a second thought, are like industrial waste being dumped into the river. They are full of sharp, abrasive particles and chemical poisons. With every meal, this toxic water flows past, scraping and inflaming the delicate garden lining the riverbanks. For a time, the body, in its wisdom, can repair the damage. But if the waste keeps coming day after day, week after week, the garden begins to wither, the soil erodes, and eventually the riverbank collapses. This collapse in the brain is a stroke. It is not random. It is built day by day, bite by bite. I saw this very tragedy unfold in a man I will call Mr. Suzuki. He was a brilliant executive, a man who built a great company with his sharp, quick mind. But his success came at a cost. He traveled constantly, and his diet was one of convenience. Sandwiches with deli meats at airports, fried foods at business dinners, pasta and white bread at hotels. He began to have what he called senior moments, a fleeting numbness in his fingers, a brief moment of confusion where words would not come. He dismissed it as fatigue from his busy life. He did not know that his beautiful inner garden was being systematically poisoned until it was almost too late.
Mr. Suzuki's story is a sobering illustration of how these choices, often made for convenience, can have such devastating hidden costs. So let's get specific to empower our audience. Let's break down these dietary villains one by one. Dr. Hinahara, what is the first food on your list that people over 60 should seriously reconsider for the health of their inner skin?
The first is a modern invention that has become a staple in many Western homes, but one that is almost absent from a traditional Japanese diet. It is processed deli meat. I am speaking of packaged ham, bacon, sausages, and those perfectly uniform slices of turkey or chicken found in plastic containers. The problem with these foods begins with their intention. They are not designed for nourishment. They are designed for long shelf life, for consistency, and for speed. The sacred principle of freshness is sacrificed for the commercial principle of convenience. When you eat something that was created to resist decay for weeks or months, you are consuming that resistant, stagnant energy. This energy is very harsh on the delicate inner skin of the arteries. The stream of water flowing through your river is no longer gentle. It has become a chemical solution. In Japan, the guiding principle for protein is wholeness and life. We prefer a small piece of fresh fish or chicken cooked moments before it is eaten. It has its life force intact. We are consuming something that is alive and vibrant, not something that has been preserved in salt and chemicals to endure time.
What you call stagnant energy has a very specific and destructive biochemical signature. To achieve that long shelf life, manufacturers use high levels of sodium and compounds called nitrites. When we consume nitrites, they can form highly inflammatory compounds in the body called nitrosamines. These nitrosamines are directly toxic to the endothelium. But here is the critical mechanism for our audience to understand. They are profound nitric oxide killers. Nitrosamines create intense oxidative stress within the endothelial cells. This stress directly inhibits the action of a crucial enzyme called endothelial nitric oxide synthase, or ENOS. This is the very enzyme your body uses to produce the nitric oxide that keeps your blood vessels relaxed and protected. So every bite of processed meat is actively instructing your body to produce less of the one molecule it needs most to defend itself against high blood pressure and stroke. This isn't just a theory. A major 2021 study published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition followed thousands of adults and found that higher consumption of processed meats, but not unprocessed red meat, was directly associated with an increased risk of cardiovascular disease. The authors concluded that the damage likely came from the chemical additives, not just the fat content. So the preservatives themselves are shutting down our body's own defense system. That's chilling. Let's move to the second killer. This one is found in almost every processed food and restaurant kitchen, often disguised as a healthy alternative.
Yes, the second is perhaps even more hidden because it is a liquid. It is the refined vegetable oil. I am speaking of soybean oil, corn oil, cottonseed oil, and safflower oil. These are the oils of industry, not the oils of nature. This was the other poison in Mr. Suzuki's diet. He told me of his many business dinners where food was often fried or cooked in heavy sauces to make it taste exciting. He believed he was eating well. These were expensive restaurants with high-quality ingredients. But the fish was fried in unstable oil. The vegetables were drowned in it. Heat, as you know, changes the very nature of these oils. It makes them angry. It turns them from a potential source of energy into a definite source of inflammation. The principle we teach in Japan is respect for heat. Gentle oils like sesame or olive oil should be used gently, perhaps drizzled on at the end. For high heat, it is better to use no oil at all to grill, steam, or simmer. This honors the food and protects the body.
When you say the oil becomes angry, you are eloquently describing a chemical process called lipid peroxidation. The oils you mentioned are high in polyunsaturated omega-6 fats. These molecules are inherently unstable. When they are exposed to high heat, oxygen, and light, their chemical structure is damaged, creating a chain reaction that produces a storm of free radicals. You can think of these free radicals as tiny hot sparks flying from a fire. They fly off and physically attack the delicate fatty membranes of our endothelial cells, our inner skin. This attack depletes the body's natural antioxidant stores, like vitamin E, as it scrambles to put out the fire. This persistent, low-grade fire caused by consuming oxidized oils is a primary driver of chronic inflammation, which leads to endothelial dysfunction and the formation of atherosclerotic plaques. The journal Free Radical Biology and Medicine has published extensive research on this, confirming that byproducts of lipid peroxidation are found within these plaques, directly linking the regular consumption of these processed, heated oils to the progression of vascular disease. An internal fire, a very powerful and accurate image. This brings us to the third and final villain on our list today, and it may be the most common of all.
The final killer is not as obvious as a chemical preservative or a damaged oil. It is the gentleness that is not gentle. It is the softness that is actually very hard on the body. It is the refined carbohydrate, white bread, white pasta, white rice, and sugary breakfast cereals. If our arteries are a river, these foods make the water turbulent. They create a flash flood of sugar, which is then followed by a sudden, unnatural drought. This violent high-low rhythm batters the riverbanks, our inner skin. There is no peace. There is no stability. It is constant chaos and repair. The principle of healthy carbohydrates in the Japanese diet is fiber and fermentation. Fiber from vegetables and whole grains like buckwheat or barley acts like stones, reeds, and gentle curves along the riverbank. It slows the flow of the water. Fermentation from foods like miso and traditional pickles adds beneficial life to the river itself. The Western approach has removed the fiber and the life, leaving only the flood.
And that flash flood of sugar leads to a deeply damaging process on a molecular level called glycation. When blood sugar is chronically high, the excess sugar molecules in your blood begin to randomly stick to proteins throughout your body, including the flexible proteins like collagen and elastin that form the very structure of your blood vessel walls. This process is irreversible. Think of it like brushing a sugar glaze onto a soft piece of bread and then putting it in a toaster. The bread becomes hard, brown, and brittle. This is exactly what glycation does to your arteries. They lose their youthful flexibility and become stiff. A stiff artery cannot expand properly to accommodate blood flow, which in turn raises blood pressure. Even more directly, these glycated proteins interfere with the ENOS enzyme we discussed earlier, crippling your body's ability to produce protective nitric oxide. The link is undeniable. A landmark report published in Circulation, the flagship journal of the American Heart Association, concluded that diets with a high glycemic load are a major independent risk factor for ischemic stroke, largely due to the combined damage that glycation and inflammation inflict on the entire vascular system. Dr. Hinohara, that was a powerful and incredibly clear breakdown of the three major dietary sources of vascular damage. Hearing all this, it can sound quite bleak. A listener right now, perhaps in their 60s or 70s, might be thinking, I have eaten this way for 40 years. The damage is already done. Is it too late to fix my arteries? What do you say to that person?
I say to that person, with all of my heart and all of my experience, it is never, ever too late. The body has a wisdom that is far greater and more forgiving than our mistakes. It is constantly striving to heal itself. We must simply stop injuring it and begin to give it the tools it needs to do its sacred work.
That is the message of hope everyone needs to hear. Can you share an example from your practice? A patient who truly proved that it's possible to turn things around, even after years of damaging habits?
Yes, the story of Mr. Suzuki. When he first understood the damage his diet of convenience had caused his inner skin, he was filled with fear. He wanted to change everything at once, a complete revolution in his kitchen. I told him, no, do not fight a war against yourself. You have been at war for too long. Instead, we must begin a friendship with your body. And that friendship starts with one small, gentle step. This is the principle of Kaizen, small, continuous improvement.
Kaizen, so instead of a radical, overwhelming overhaul, you focus on one manageable change at a time. That feels much more achievable. What was that first step for Mr. Suzuki?
His first week, the only change was his lunch sandwich. A simple thing. Instead of processed deli meat on white bread, he learned to pack a small container with a piece of grilled chicken from the night before, served with a slice of avocado on a hearty piece of whole grain bread. That was all. The next week, we addressed his business dinners. Instead of fried foods, he learned to ask for his fish to be steamed or grilled. Each week, one small positive change.
And even those first small steps have a profound scientific impact. When Mr. Suzuki swapped that one sandwich, he immediately cut his intake of those inflammatory nitrosamines and stopped actively suppressing his body's nitric oxide production for that meal. When he chose steamed fish over fried, he avoided the storm of free radicals from oxidized oils. His body, for the first time in years, had a few hours of peace each day to begin its repair work, biochemically speaking.
Exactly. And the body responds to that peace. After about a month, Mr. Suzuki told me the fleeting numbness in his fingers was gone. After 3 months, he said with tears in his eyes that the fog in his mind had finally lifted. He could read his complex financial reports for hours again with the clarity he thought he had lost forever. He did not become a different man overnight. He became himself again, slowly, respectfully, bite by bite.
He became himself again. That's the real goal, isn't it? The principle of Kaizen is clearly powerful psychologically. But is there hard, measurable evidence that the arteries themselves, the physical structures, can heal even in older adults?
The body keeps a perfect record of everything. It records the damage, and with equal precision, it records the healing.
It certainly does. And the most hopeful message from modern cardiology is that endothelial dysfunction is not a one-way street. The pioneering work of Dr. Dean Ornish, published in world-renowned journals like The Lancet, was the first to prove through rigorous scientific testing that comprehensive lifestyle changes could not only halt, but actually reverse coronary artery disease. His patients' arteries literally began to open up again.
It is a beautiful thing when science confirms what nature has always known, that healing is always possible.
Exactly. And now we can measure this healing process in real time. We use a technique called flow-mediated dilation, which is a direct assessment of how flexible and responsive an artery is. It's a direct measure of your nitric oxide production. Studies using this method have shown significant, measurable improvements in endothelial health in as little as 6 to 8 weeks after adopting a healthier diet. And to add one final point, the effect is even more powerful when you pair these dietary changes with gentle movement. A daily 30-minute walk directly stimulates the endothelium to produce more nitric oxide. So with the Kaizen approach, the new diet stops the damage and the daily walk actively promotes the repair. This two-part strategy is what creates such profound and often rapid results. Your body is ready and waiting to heal. Dr. Hinohara, this has been an incredibly empowering conversation. We started with the understandable fear surrounding stroke, but you have masterfully guided us to a place of hope and clear, actionable steps. If we were to boil everything we've discussed down to one simple scientific principle for our audience to take away, it seems to be this. The health of your brain's blood vessels depends entirely on the health of that inner skin, the endothelium, and its ability to produce nitric oxide.
Yes, it is truly that simple. Before you eat, you can ask yourself a simple question. Is what I am about to eat a friend to my inner skin, or is it an enemy? Does this food help the river of my life flow gently, or does it create a storm? That question alone can change everything.
That's a perfect question to ask at every meal. So the clear practical takeaway is to reduce or eliminate those 3 nitric oxide killers we identified: processed meats, refined industrial oils, and refined carbohydrates, and to begin embracing the whole foods that nourish and protect our arteries.
And it is most important to do so without fear. I see so much fear in my patients when they learn this. They have fear that they have done permanent damage, or fear that making a change is too difficult. To everyone listening, I want to say with great sincerity, please release that fear. It is a heavy burden, and it does not serve your healing.
That's a vital message. Fear can be paralyzing, but the Kaizen approach you shared is the perfect antidote, as it's all about gentle, forward movement. So what is your final piece of wisdom for someone who is ready to take that first gentle step tomorrow?
Do not think about next month or even next week. Think only of your next meal. Make one small, better choice. Perhaps you choose the chicken instead of the ham for lunch. Perhaps you ask for your vegetables to be steamed, not fried. Or perhaps you simply add a handful of spinach to your eggs in the morning. Your arteries are listening. Your body is always waiting for the signal to heal. You must simply give it the chance.
Dr. Shigaki Hinahara, thank you. You've given us not just information, but true wisdom and a clear, hopeful path forward. We are deeply grateful for your time and guidance. And to our wonderful audience, we hope this conversation has empowered you. Please remember, while the principles discussed today are based on extensive research and experience, this content is for educational purposes only and is not a substitute for personal medical advice. Always consult with your own physician or a qualified healthcare provider before making significant changes to your diet, especially if you have pre-existing health conditions or are taking medication. If this discussion has inspired you to take one small Kaizen step towards protecting your brain health, please give this video a like to help others find this important conversation, and be sure to subscribe to Healthier Daily for more content that bridges science and wisdom. In the comments below, we would love to know, what is one small, kind change you will make to one of your meals this week? I'm Dr. Ben Carter. Choose with wisdom, be well, and we'll see you next time.